So this morning's class, basic setup class, we're going to be going over setting up our validation rules. Our validation is what determines, our minimum staffing levels. We're going to put in the positions that we're checking for minimum staffing. We're also going to put in, hourly rules. We need X amount of people for this position at these hours of the day, and so on. We're going to assign those skill sets to people just so the right people are counting, towards the correct position. And that's it. It's a very straightforward class. So like I mentioned before, you can either, put it in your system as we're going through this, or you can just open up the guide and kind of follow along. And like I mentioned before, after each topic we go over today, I'm going to open up the mics in case anyone needs me to go over something again, or if they have a question, anything like that. And like if you do have a question while I'm going over something, by all means, raise your hand or send me a message via chat. But we'll go ahead and get right into it. So the first thing we need to do when putting in our validation rules is to actually determine the positions or the particular skill that we're looking to validate, to count towards minimum staffing. In the system, we refer to this as a validation skill set. And if you look in the guide, it'll tell you, a skill set is just a description of a position that you can link to employees for validation. So if you need, two supervisors, working at all times of the day, that would be a skill set, a supervisor skill set. So to put in those skill sets, we're going to click on Administration to pull up this sidebar menu. And the nice thing about today's class is everything we're going to be doing today can be found in the validation menu right here. So we're not going to be kind of bouncing all over the place. It's going to be all in this section right here. So to put in our skill sets, we are going to click on Validation and Coverage Skill Sets. And now it's going to bring us to this screen. So now, just kind of at a glance, at this stage in the game, you'll notice that we are currently on the Validation Skill Sets tab. We do have another tab, Update Skill Set Labels. Don't worry about that second one. You're not going to be using it this early in the setup. Just to kind of get what you need in the most basic fashion, we're going to be sticking with Validation Skill Set. So only this page. So now the section right below the tabs, in a nutshell, this is just the color that we want to shift to show on the daily schedule when our validation is either met or exceeded. So you'll see here I have it set up to be green whenever our validation is good. So you'll see behind that, this is my daily schedule, everything's green, so we're good. Now, to the right, just what color do you want the shift to show when validation fails, meaning we're falling below minimum staffing? And it's red in this case, so you'll notice that, this is green. But if, say, someone were to call out on my night shift and we were to fall below minimum staffing, just the night shift would pop up red. So this is like a good kind of visual cue to see, if we're good on minimum staffing. If we're not, where do we need to bring someone in? Where are we falling short of our minimum staffing levels? So to select the color, it's very simple. You just click Select Color, and you can make it any color you want. However, I would recommend making it kind of like a dull color, something that would be easy to read text on. You don't want to make anything too bright because that's the daily schedule is what you're going to be using for a lot of your scheduling functions and things like that. So I would recommend kind of making it almost like a neutral color, but it's completely up to you. You just click Select Color, select the color you want to change it to, and then you click OK. It's as simple as that. Same thing for when validation fails. I like it to be red. You know, when you see red, okay, that means something's off, and then, you know, it's in my opinion the best way to see, you know, when you fall below. But once again, you click select color, you can make it anything you want. And then you could also change the font color, either black or white. Those are your only two options. So whatever, you know, gives you the easiest to read. You know, for red, I don't think it matters, black or white. It kind of, you know, looks the same to me. But so, yeah, you can pick your font colors as well. So now this down here is where we're actually going to be putting in our skill sets. So now you'll notice I already have mine filled out, but that's okay. If you haven't done this before, it's just going to be blank. Now we can put in up to 6 skill sets, and once again, these skill sets are really just positions that we need to have, you know, filled, you know, in terms of minimum staffing. So we can put in up to 6, and now this is very important. You'll notice it goes item 1 all the way through 6. The system, there is kind of an order to this. Now, the system will go from bottom to top as far as what needs to get filled first. So, you know, one way to think about it, it kind of goes from, this is going to be a poor way of putting this, but least important to most important. Another way is, you know, item 6 needs to get filled absolutely first before anything else. And then once that's filled, then it fills 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. Now, where this is actually important is if you have someone that belongs to multiple skill sets. So let's pretend, you know, we're going to do this for a police department, kind of like how it's set up now. I may have an OIC position or sergeant skill set or supervisor skill set, and then I'll have patrol and then, you know, desk. Well, I might have someone that can count as both an OIC or a patrol depending on what's needed, right? And that's certainly acceptable within the system. We can have people belonging to multiple skill sets. But what happens is if I have an employee who can count towards both patrol and OIC, if we have a shortage in both positions, patrol and OIC, the system is going to see what the highest item I count towards is and then count me towards it. So even though I belong to multiple validation skill sets, I can only count towards one at one time. So if I were to get brought on the schedule and I belong to both patrol and OIC, the system would automatically pull me to OIC. If OIC gets filled and we bring in another person who counts towards both patrol and OIC, well, that person's only going to count towards patrol because our lowest item has been filled. Now, is everyone good with that? If you're not, just raise your hand or send me a chat. I do know it might be a little complex to wrap your head around, but in the simplest terms, you know, the lowest item is what needs to get filled first, and then it kind of just trickles up from there. So it's really easy. You just type in the name of the position that you are looking to fill. You know, like I said, from needs to be filled first to, you know, gets filled last. These coverage skill sets, this is something that you don't need to concern yourself with right now. This is something kind of down the line you're going to take a look at. But for all intents and purposes, today's class, don't worry about coverage skill sets, only validation and coverage skill sets. And if you're following along in the guide, you'll notice that in the guide, we're not talking about coverage skill sets either, so don't worry about it. So you select your colors, and you put in your validation skill sets in the first column. Now that's, you know, topic number 1, done. So I'm going to open up the microphones. Does anyone have any questions regarding putting in validation skill sets?
All set. Thank you.
Okay. And is everyone good with kind of how it gets filled? Meaning, you know, if I count towards patrol and OIC, I'm going to count towards whatever needs to get filled first.
Yeah, all set.
All right, great. Anyone else? If we're all good, we'll move right along to the next topic. All right, silence. I'm going to take that as we're all good, so we'll just move right along. I'm going to mute the microphones again. Okay. Now, so once you're done, click Save, close it. We're good. On to the next one. We are going to now assign those skill sets to our employees, and this is a very easy step. We are going to go to, once again, like I said, we're going to stay in the validation screen. We're going to click Employee Validation Skill Sets. Now this screen will allow you to link the skill sets that we just put in to individual employees. Now, like I said before, you know, I can belong to, you know, all three skill sets if that's allowed, but I can only count towards one of them at one time depending on what needs to get filled. So we click on Employee Validation Skill Sets. Now it brings us to this screen right here. All we need to do is click Select Employees. Now, you can either do this for everyone at once if you want to break it up by group, because all this is just a master list of all the employees in my system. I can do, you know, I can select, okay, I'm just going to do Squad A first, and then I click All, I click Select and Close, and they will show up in this screen. Honestly, the easiest way to do this, just do it for everyone at once. So I'm just going to pull up all groups. I click Select and Close. This is just going to bring me to my master list. I select all. I click Select and Close. Now let me blow this up so you can see it, you know, a little easier. So now what's happening is here are all of our employees, and then to the right are skill sets. So you'll notice, you know, skill number 1 is desk. Skill number 2, patrol. Skill number 3, OIC. I'm not using 4, 5, and 6, so those are blank. Don't, you know, check any boxes in any blank columns, and you'll see, you know, the name of the skill sets that we're validating for in each column. And, you know, to link a validation skill set towards a particular employee, we literally just check the box next to what they apply to. So in this case, Andrew Ferguson does not count towards desk. He does count towards patrol. He does not count towards OIC. But now down here, for Jake Patterson, he counts towards both patrol and OIC. So he could count towards, you know, one of these patrols or one of these skill sets at any given time, depending on what needs to get filled. All right, so if we're good on OIC, but we're down someone in patrol, and we bring Jake into work, well, he's going to count towards patrol since OIC is filled. We don't need any more. So you just kind of go right on down the list, check any boxes that, you know, someone applies to. So in this case, let's make, you know, John Smith count towards desk and nothing else. Once you're done, you click Apply. You'll see successfully updated, you know, X amount of entries depending on how many people you're doing this for. And you click OK. If no one counts towards anything, like down here, you just leave all of it blank. That's fine. Click Apply. Once you get that pop-up saying, you know, successfully updated, you know, whatever amount of entries, you can close out. You're done. And that's all there is to it. So I'll unmute the mics. Is everyone good with that? Pretty simple.
Yeah. Yep. You would think about it. It would be an incentive to get people to be technicians. If you look at the vacancy and there's no tech working, it goes to technicians first by seniority.
And hey, listen, and even once we're all done with this, if maybe you want to see an example of how your, you know, agency. Okay, we do have a question.
techs and throw the overtime into a whirl again.
Now, Gary, when you say only for patrol, not the ranked positions, when you say rank, are you referring to like title? Chief, so do you validate for chief and captain and all that stuff already?
Overtime incentive. The town doesn't even have to do.
I'm gonna mute the microphones. Okay, so yeah, we're not really validating by title, right? Like when you say working the streets, you're referring to patrol, right? Yeah. So if you need, if you need X amount of people on the streets working patrol, I may be an officer, I may even be a sergeant working the streets, patrolling. So you wouldn't necessarily validate by title. You're validating based on the position that, you're validating based on how many people you need for a particular position. Exactly, street positions. So am I explaining this, I guess, clear enough? Okay, great. Yeah, because like I said, you may have multiple different, titles working towards a particular validation skill set, right? It may be possible for, if I'm validating for patrol, it could be possible if, I'm running low, a detective could count towards patrol, obviously an officer, maybe even a sergeant, yeah, we're not really validating based on title. Chances are you're going to have more than 6, and it's kind of, it's kind of more work than you need to. All right, so we're good with that. On to the next topic. We're just flying through this. We are going to create validation shifts. Now, a validation shift is really, in the most generic terms possible, it's just the name of a group of shifts that count towards validation. So if I'm validating for patrol, I would typically have a generic patrol validation shift. But within that validation shift, I have my, maybe patrol day shift, my patrol afternoon shift, my patrol night shift. It's really just the name of a grouping of shifts that count towards a particular validation. Now, I'd also recommend you can have multiple validation shifts, right? So you may have a patrol validation shift and you'll see here, I have an hourly validation tile down here. You'll notice desk is white. That means that for this validation shift, I'm not looking at desk, right? So if I'm validating for patrol, chances are I don't care how many people I have working desk. That doesn't really apply to me. But I do care about patrol and OIC. So in this case, desk is its own validation shift, and then patrol is looking at patrol and OIC. You'll kind of get a better understanding as we go through. So to put in our validation shifts, we're going to click on validation shifts under validation. So like I just said, you see we have 2 validation shifts right here, patrol and desk/dispatch. Now, this is because this is already created. In your case, if this is the first time doing it, this list will be blank, so we need to create a new one. And I'll just kind of repeat this, in a new validation shift. So I'm going to click new, and you'll notice I get editable fields down here. You can just click in that field, and name the validation shift. So like I was saying, if you're doing a validation shift for patrol, or if you want to, and Gary, in your case, if you want to call it streets or something, you know, you need a code and you need a description. Now, a code it's just a code that identifies that specific validation shift. You know, 12 character maximum. So in this case, you know, just kind of mirror what I already have. I'll just call it PTL. And then in description, it's just, you know, the validation shift name kind of expanded if you're, you know, abbreviating it in the code like I am right here. So I can say patrol/OIC because that's what I'm validating in this shift. And the reason why we have multiple shifts is to kind of, you know, make that distinction because like I said, patrol may not care about dispatch or desk, how many people are working. We only care about patrol. And vice versa, maybe desk doesn't really care, you know, who's working patrol. Maybe they only care about how many people we have at our desk minimum staffing levels. So now once we put in a code and a description, by the way, a description is a 50-character maximum. We just check the boxes next to these shifts that, you know, count towards this particular validation shift. And now, you know, you might say, where are these shifts coming from? Well, if you remember when or better yet, if you were the one that put in the shifts into your system, you had a box asking you, does this, you know, are we validating minimum staffing levels on this shift? Yes or no? So pretty much any shift where you checked yes for is going to show up in this list on the right. So for my patrol and OIC validation shift, I'm just counting days and night patrol to that validation shift. I click save, save successful. So now you'll see for my desk validation shift, I'm only validating communications, not patrol, not any patrol shifts. So this, you know, you may have some questions on this, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute the microphones. Does everyone kind of have a good understanding of what we're doing here in validation shifts? It's really just groups of shifts that we're counting, that we're looking at minimum staffing levels.
708. 708?
Yeah, it is 708.
We're good, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, you're at 708.
So they get their clerk out making stops all the time.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Now, the reason we split up these validation shifts is because if we're validating for everything at once, you might have, if you fall short in for desk, right? Say this example might not make any sense, but say records has people counting towards desk duty in it. Well, if we fall short in records and we're validating for everything in one shift, my patrol shifts are going to show up red, even though no one who's working desk or counting towards desk is working patrol. It's gonna say, well, this shift is also falling in that one generic validation shift. So it may be a little confusing looking at it if you validate for everything at once. So if you see, you know, if you fall short in desk and both patrol, night, and record shows up red, you're going to say, well, where am I falling short? So the reason why we split those up is so we know, you know, we're falling short on desk, and say records is counting towards desk, only records is going to turn red. Patrol will be untouched because no one, you know, we're not validating for patrol in our desk validation shift. Is everyone good with that? And by all means, if you're a little unclear, anything, you know, let me know. I want to make sure we're all on the same page, you know, moving forward, because this is important. if no one has any questions, and we're all good with this, we will move on to the next part, which is where we're actually going to be putting in our validation rules per hour. So now validation, let me close that. Validation rules per hour or by hour allow you to set the hourly staffing levels per skill set per hour of the day for each validation shift that you've created. Now you'll notice in the guide it also says, please note you must set a validation tile with the appropriate validation shifts and validation settings in order to track the validation rules, which is just this hourly validation. And you know what, I'm going to show you guys how to do this once we're done, because this isn't something that we go over in the initial dashboard setup in that class, which you may have already taken. We just show you the basic scheduling tiles, but I'll show you how to add that as well. So to put in our rules, we need to click on Validation Rules by Hour, not Validation Job Rules. That is something totally different, so keep that in mind. We are only using Validation Rules by Hour. So now when we click on this, we get this screen. Let me expand it so we can see everything. So pretty much up here, it's asking you what validation shift, meaning group of shifts, are we putting in rules for. And if we use the drop down, here are all the validation shifts we've created. So let's work with the one we just created. You'll notice when I do that, it says in red, no rules found. That's because I just created it. I don't have any rules for it, but for everything that was already in my system, I do have rules for, so you'll see in green, rules found. So let's go to patrol/OIC. Now, when it comes to putting in rules, there's two ways we can do it. If your agency has different rules depending on the day of the week, we would do it. We would leave this button checked, days of week. Now, if your agency has, doesn't matter what day of the week it is, our minimum staffing levels are the same, meaning, say we need 4 officers Monday through Friday, or 4 guys working patrol Monday through Friday, and on the weekends we also need 4 guys, it's all the same. We could leave that set to days of week, but under the day of week drop down, we move it from select days to all, and you'll notice now I only have one row, it says all. If your agency though has different rules, maybe Monday through Friday we need 6 guys working patrol, but then Saturday and Sunday we need 8 guys, we need to bring more people in, then leave it set to select days. And now you'll notice here we can put in, the amount of people for each day just by expanding it. If I were to select all, I can only put it in once, and that's just going to apply these rules for every single day of the week. So for my example, I'll leave it set to day of week. All days of week. But then I'll also show you if your validation levels are different depending on the day. I'll show you how to do that as well. So now once we put in those settings and we click expand on, say, all, now it's asking you, okay, it's broken down. Each row is the validation skill set, and each column represents an hour of the day. So the first column, 0, means from midnight to 1 a.m. How many people do we need? The next column, from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m., how many people do we need? Now, keep in mind, it does only validate hourly. So if you have, from 5:30 to 6:30, we need, this many people, the system won't do that. You either need to select, you need to kind of generalize it. So If I need one person from 1:30 to 2:30, I'm either going to need to say one starting at 1 a.m., even though it doesn't start till 1:30, and I just have to know that if it says there's an overage, well, that's just because from, I'm sorry, if it says that if we're short someone, well, that's just because they don't come in till 1:30. But to kind of simplify things, we'll just say I am validating, per start of the hour. So because in patrol and OIC, I'm only validating patrol and OIC, desk has nothing to do with this particular validation shift, I'm going to leave desk 0, meaning I have no rules for desk. I'm not counting desk towards this shift, so I'm not even looking at it. Now with patrol, say, for every day of the week, because I'm in all days of the week right now, I need, 2 patrol guys from midnight till 7 a.m. So starting at 7, I need 4 people for the rest of the day. So these numbers here are just how many people we need at a particular hour of the day. And say for OIC, it's just 1 right across the board. I put in my rules. You'll notice that there's nothing else in the bottom row, so I can leave that set to 0. That's fine. I click Save. And now that rule is in place. Now, for my next example, let me just zero all this out so I can show you how to put it in based on day of the week. So now, say maybe, on the weekends I need more people. I'm going to put it on select days for day of week. So then maybe Mondays I need, 2 people across the board for patrol, 1 OIC, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do this for every day of the week. So that's Monday. I can close it. I don't need to save after each day. You can minimize it because it's still going to be there. We're not really closing anything out. We're just kind of collapsing that tile. I move on to Tuesday. I put in my, same levels. OIC, I put in the same levels. And I'm just going to, repeat this process for Monday through, Friday. But then on Saturday, maybe I need 3 patrol guys at all times of the day. And maybe I need 2 OICs on Saturday. And then, on Sunday, I need 3 patrol guys in the morning, and then starting at 6 a.m., it goes back to 2. And once again, maybe I need 2 OICs until 6 a.m. Oops. And then it goes down to 1. And I'm just going to keep doing, so I go through each day of the week. Once I'm done with all days of the week, I click Save. So once I'm done with that, your rules are in, you're good to go. So let me unmute the microphones. Is everyone good with putting in those validation levels that we're looking at for each day of the week?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, we're good with that.
Okay, great. Everyone else good? Great. Everyone's good? All right, so the last thing I'm going to show you, what to do is how to get this validation, tile to show. Let me just exit, or I'm going to get rid of that. So right now, everyone should at least have a daily schedule, right? Now, with the daily schedule, that's really the place I would recommend putting this in. That way, when you're looking at the daily schedule, you see, one, who's working today, all that good stuff, but you will also see the hourly validation for that day, because we can only validate on a daily basis. We can't have a validation grid showing, the week or anything like that, because it's broken down by hours of the day. So if we were to validate for a week, you're showing 24 columns for 7 days. That's a lot of information. And at that point, it's not even that easy to read, probably not that easy to understand. So it's done on a daily basis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my daily schedule tab. I'm going to click Edit Dashboard. And, chances are you're going to have to, split something up. So in this case, maybe, and I'm just going to include it down here. So I'm going to split up this tile. Let's readjust some of this. So now I have a perfectly good blank tile down here. I'm going to click the Add Tile button. And now you'll see we have hourly validation and hourly job validation. Based on what we did today, we only need hourly validation. And, here's the preview of that grid. And now this is just showing you, what it could look like. So you'll notice, I'm validating for just patrol and OIC. You'll see that it's red from midnight all the way up until 7 a.m. and it's showing minus and then 3 and 1. That means that we're short 3 guys, we're short 1 guy for OIC, but then it becomes green starting at 7, and then we see +3 and then nothing. Blank green tile means that you're at minimum staffing. All right, you're not above it, you're not below it, you are at it. So if I need 2 people, that means I have 2 OICs right here. Anytime you see plus, that means you have an overage. So if you need 3 patrol guys and you have 6 working, well, then you're at +3. So we select hourly validation. We're going to use timer, so we're going to turn that box on. Update rate of 300 seconds. And then down here it's asking what shift are we validating. Or, so if I were to use the patrol/OIC validation shift that I just put in, it's going to show, how I'm doing for each hour of the day based on those validation shifts the validation skill sets that I said belong to this shift. I'm going to leave it set to patrol. Days past and days future, leave that to 0. That way it's showing you the current day. If you were to put like 1 day past, that means that if you pull up the daily schedule for today, it's going to show you the hourly validation for yesterday. Not very helpful. So leave it set to 0. We click Apply and Use. Now it's in there. I click Save and Exit. So then there's my validation. Now if you have more than 1, well, you can just add another one. But in that case, I would recommend putting titles on the grid. So if I open that back up, this is the one I previously put in, so I'm going to click the Edit button. I'm going to give it a title and say Patrol/OIC. Maybe I'll adjust the title font so it stands out. I'll make it bold and, a bigger size. So now you'll see it says Patrol. Here's our validation levels for Patrol and OIC. But then I want to add that desk validation skill set in, or validation shift in there. So let me just readjust the size of this. I'm going to add a tile again. I'm going to click hourly validation. Use timer 300. Now the update rate of 300 seconds, that's just a recommended setting. You don't really need anything faster than that. Now I'm going to select my desk validation shift. And I'm also going to give it a title. I'm going to say desk/DSP. So now you'll notice now I see all validation levels, but it's broken up, right? It's easier to read that way. I'm not validating for patrol or OIC when it comes to desk, so those are just white, meaning there are no rules. But you'll see, I don't have anyone who's assigned to desk working today, so I'm -1 across the board. So this is a good way to see, okay, how am I doing for patrol? Well, you look at the patrol hourly validation grid, we're good. How am I doing on desk? Not so good. Right, let me open up the microphones. Does anyone have any questions about putting in that hourly validation grid?
All set, thanks. The only benefit to it might be, as a sergeant, approving time off, just to see if you're +1 or +2 for that kind of.
All right. Well, if everyone's good, that's it for today's class. So if anyone has any questions regarding anything we did today, feel free to ask. If not, the session's over. Before I close out of the session, I do want to remind everyone that we do offer help out sessions via GoToTraining, and a help out session, it's a 45-minute session. It's one-on-one. So if you're going, through this, say, later on today, and you have a couple of questions regarding, department-specific rule, because, this morning I showed you how to do it, the standardized way, but maybe your department has some out-of-the-box, rules, and you don't know how to put them in. Well, you can sign up for a help-out session on the registration page where, everyone went to sign up for this class. You can find a help out session, sign up for it, and then that's pretty much, a one-on-one session where, you might be dealing with me, you might be dealing with another associate, and it's all about you in that class for 45 minutes. So if you need us to show you anything, if you need help putting something in, it's a really good tool to use, in case you do need that extra help getting, set up. But like I said, between this video, the guide, and the help outs, you have all these resources available to ensure your success. So that's my spiel for the class. If no one has any questions, we can go ahead and end this meeting, and you guys can get to putting in those rules for validation.
All set, thank you.
Not a problem. All right, everyone have a good day.